Hey ho everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Doug's Guitar of the Day. What we have here is something that you probably haven't seen before. Why? Because it's completely original. I'll go ahead. It's kind of lengthy and kind of wordy, and this is one of the guitars that has sentimental value that I'll never sell. Main reason is because I designed it. So back in 2001 or 2002, must have been bored one day, and for years I'd wanted a Gibson Birdland, and never could afford it. But I also liked, sounds and features that other guitars had that I'd kind of gotten used to. So I used to take my guitars for repair to a guy named John Gray in Champaign, Illinois. And I kind of tossed around the idea of him making me one because he makes guitars, to people's specifications. He said he could do it. So what I did is I took a great big piece of paper and put it out on the kitchen table. And I drew full scale of the guitar that I wanted. What I did was start with the scale length. A Birdland has a shorter scale length from the nut to the bridge. It's actually 23 and a half. A standard Gibson is 24 and 3/4, and most Fenders, Strats, Tellys, stuff like that are 25 and a half. The shorter the distance between the nut and the bridge, the closer your frets will be together, and the easier it is to play if you got small hands like mine. So I started with a neck, and I had my ruler out and tried to do it to spec. I wanted the neck to be kind of narrow from side to side, so I started with 1 5/8, and I had some other guitars for reference. I had a Gibson 125 that's a 1962 that you'll see in a subsequent episode, and I had the Strat that I made from episode 4, and I kind of used those to figure out, where I wanted to place a lot of stuff. So I knew I wanted a set neck, but I knew I wanted a hollow body, not a semi-hollow like a 335, which has a big chunk in the middle of it and is just hollow on the sides. I wanted it completely hollow so I could manipulate feedback, hold a note and kind of let it ring, turn towards the amplifier and let it catch a harmonic. I love that stuff. So I started taking measurements, and I started thinking of the guitars that I used to have, and pickup placement and where I wanted the volume control. I knew this was going to be hard to handle at any kind of stage volume, so I put the volume control pretty close to where my picking hand would be, so I could turn it down immediately if I needed to. In the 90s, I played a lot of Fender, so I got used to that Strat type 5-way switch as opposed to the 3-way Gibson toggle. So I ended up with a master volume, master tone, 5-way switch, and this initially was going to be the coil tap for the humbucking pickups. I ended up going with 3 pickups so I could get some Strat sounds, but I ended up with a switching scheme that would let me use the outside 2 pickups together so I could still get your main 3 Gibson sounds too. What I was going for was to try to get everything in one guitar. And it worked a little bit. It still got its own thing going. So basically, after I drew it out, I took it to him. He said he could make it. I gave him $250 down, and then in the process of him building it, he almost had it done, but then he moved from Champaign, Illinois. I was, about 40 miles away in Decatur, Illinois. He moved to Washburn, Wisconsin, clear up on the shore of Lake Superior, I guess. And so I had to wait a little more, but still he got it done within a year. Shipped it to me on Christmas. So it was kind of like a dream come come true for, just under $1,000, where a Birdland would have cost me, at least $5,000 up to 10. So, um, so I won't ramble too much about that, but that's how it. I basically took the paper to John Gray and I said, "Well, here it is," and I rolled it out, and he's like, "Well, that's kind of small." And I thought, "Well, I don't, I don't care. I mean, it's a little bit easier to handle if it's not a really wide body." Anyway, he said he could build it, and we went through the woods. Solid spruce top. He said he started with 3/4 inch stock, so he actually hand carved the top. Um, so the top actually looked like a violin or cello or something like that. You can see it's got that same kind of grain in it. Standard Gibson size F holes. I actually trace these F holes off my Gibson 125. Back is maple, two-piece maple. Back and sides are both maple. The neck is mahogany. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a strip in the middle of the neck of vermilion, I think he said. I think that's right. The headstock shape I designed, but then I started looking and I must have subconsciously took it off another guitar. I don't remember what brand it was, but I have seen this headstock design before. But I also wanted straight string pull over the nut, so I angled the tuning post in so the strings go straight over the nut and don't go at an angle to make it a little bit more tuning stable. That's straight out of what I saw from Paul Reed Smith. I used to use a Paul Reed Smith standard back in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's where that idea came from. Anyway, the bridge, not the bridge, fretboard. I need more coffee. Fretboard is rosewood. I think he said Madagascar. I'm not a big wood guy. That may be a type of rosewood. It looks rosewoodish. So bone nut. Now I wanted the headstock initially to be spruce to match the body. He ended up going with burled walnut. His trademark is right there. It's hard to see, but it says JG in it. I like the burled walnut. Looks like a truss rod cover. Maybe rosewood as well. The bridge, rosewood bridge base. Now I had him purposely pin it to the body because I didn't want to move it back and forth. I really didn't want to drill, big holes in the top either. So what he did to keep this stable so it doesn't fall off when you're changing strings or whatever, you can't see it, but there's I think he said a 20 thousandths or 22 thousandths, like a G string or whatever, and he drilled in either side of the bridge base with a dental burr and drilled into the top, and he pushes that string down and you can't even see it, but it stabilizes the bridge base. So when the bridge comes off or when I change strings, I don't have to worry about it getting out of position. He put a standard aftermarket tune-o-matic on it, which looks fine. Tailpiece wise, I wanted the Birdland tailpiece, but I also wanted nickel hardware. All he could find was gold. And when he tried to get the gold finish off the tailpiece, it broke. So he ended up going with 175, which I'm getting used to, but I may end up getting the Birdland tailpiece after all. I really don't like the angles. It's too Art Deco for me. I would rather have curves to match kind of the curves of the guitar, but it's been functional. The only thing that was kind of weird, and I don't think it really happened amplified, but the the bottom of the tailpiece kind of touches the guitar a little bit, and you can hear that kind of buzzing vibration sound. So what I did is I've got a piece of suede between the bottom of the bridge and the body to kind of dampen that so I don't hear it. That way when I play it unplugged or whatever, I don't hear that buzz, buzz, buzz. That's another reason I don't use tune-o-matics with that retainer spring on there because I can always hear that, sympathetic vibration or whatever. So let's go through the controls real quick. Master volume, easy to get to. A lot of people don't like it this close because they accidentally turn it off. But I got used to moving my right hand up this way a little bit to compensate for that. So it's there when I can shut it down if it gets out of control, because it will feed back on you sometimes when you don't want it to, and that's kind of the fun of playing it. Master tone. Now this one isn't wired in 50s fashion like a lot of my other ones are. It's what they call modern wiring, and I have a treble bleed capacitor across the volume control so I don't lose any highs when I turn it down. Okay, now the 5-way switch, it's got some different combinations than most. Here's your back lead pickup in position 1. Kind of got that Gibson bark to it. Volume control works good. It's an audio taper pot. The next position is the bridge humbucker and the middle pickup, which is a Seymour Duncan. I think it's an SH2. It's actually a stacked humbucker, but I've only got half of it hooked up. So it's basically a single coil pickup and a humbucker, and that's where I get my Strat. Need to put my strap back on. It's hard for me to manipulate that. Well, I won't worry about it right now. Next position, middle position, both humbuckers. Straight out of Gibson book. Next position, one of my favorites for this guitar, and I call it my church position. It works good for slower hymnal type worship songs, and it's the front humbucker and the middle single coil, and a lot of times I'll roll the tone all the way down or almost all the way down, and it's a really pretty sound. So that's kind of my go-to for this guitar. I think that's what it does the best right now. I thought about rewiring it, but I don't want to lose that sound right there. Then your next position is the neck humbucker. These humbuckers are Seymour Duncan 59 model humbucker. They have an Alnico 5 magnet. I'm not sure what their resistance is. They're kind of medium output. They're a little bit hotter than what I have in most of my Gibsons. Anyway, this other switch right here, initially it was going to be a coil cut for the humbuckers so I could get some bridge single coil and neck single coil sounds. And it didn't really sound that good in that mode, so I changed this to a kill switch. And right now it's not killing correctly, so I'm going to have to take it apart and figure out what's going on there. But if I have to, the idea was if I have to, I could just shut the guitar off using that switch. It's got your standard, it's a Switchcraft type switch, has your standard Gretsch knob, strap lock knob that I put on all my Gibsons or anything with a Switchcraft 3-way. Now, I apologize today because my computer doesn't seem to cooperate, so I don't have a track to jam with. So probably the best thing that I can do is stop right now, but I'll try to play a song just real quick. I wanted to touch on the feedback aspect of it too. Now, I wanted it to do this. I'm going to turn my back to you a little bit, and I'm going to let you know why I made this hollow. So I'm going to hit 3rd fret of the big E string. I'm going to hit a G, and I'm going to turn towards the amp. And what it's going to do is it's going to feed back. It's going to feed back on a harmonic. It's going to, hopefully, it depends on the position between you and your speaker, but it may feed back on a D note. So when you do that, it'll start in a G, and then you'll hear it kind of go up to this different note, but I'm still holding one note, and that's the funnest thing about a hollow body guitar to me. So here's what I mean. That's why I made it, really, truth be known. But it does pretty stuff too. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next one.